So a little bit of a context. There are 4 very recognizable covenants in the Old Testament. One with Noah, we've talked about that one already, one with Abraham, this one with Moses, and one with David. There are lots of covenants, but those are the 4 most recognizable ones. The biblical Hebrew word for covenant is brit or bris, and it's used for the agreement between God and God's people, and it's also used for agreements between humans, like marriage, a marriage covenant, and also even friendship. Now, before we go into parsing this, you need to know something. I'm going to try to type something in here. That word that I put there, suzerainty, is a relationship in which one country or state or polity, so a political organization, controls all the foreign relations of a state, another state, but allows them internal autonomy. Now, the only reason I'm mentioning this is at any given time, the Judeans, the Hebrew people, the Israelites, were under the suzerainty of other countries, like the Hittites, for instance. And when Moses, and of course there's a great debate if Moses, in fact, by his own hand, wrote these commandments that we'll hear on Sunday from Exodus chapter 20, the point is that more than likely what was done was that Moses reinterpreted the codes that were already in place because of, in this case, the Hittite suzerainty that was executed over the Israelite people. They were allowed internal autonomy, but their relationship with foreign countries was controlled by, in this case, the Hittites, whatever group it was. Okay, so you need to know that this just didn't come out of thin air. It came because of something going on in the regions around them. That's important to note. The difference between the Mosaic covenant and the covenants of the other countries, like the covenant of the Hittites, for instance, with the Hittites, is this. There are clearly 2 divisions. There are 3 commandments, I'll call them commandments, that refer to the relationship with God, and that is what is exclusive to the Hebrew Mosaic covenant. The others, what we Roman Catholics call commandments 4 through 10, that interfaced with your relationship with other people. And that's what was common to other covenants that were written and ritualized even between a conquering country and the Israelite people. So that the exclusivity of the first 3 is what makes the covenant unique. I, the Lord, am your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, that place of slavery. You shall not have other gods before me. Now, this is what set the Hebrew people apart from everyone else who had multiple gods. So this is the most significant statement. You shall not carve idols for yourselves in the shape of anything, in the sky above, or on the earth below, or in the waters beneath the earth. You shall not bow down before them or worship them. Okay, now this is an interesting thing, because it's clear that the message from God is, I don't even want something that you can look at that will remind you of me. Now, besides this chapter in Exodus, the book of Deuteronomy is another writing out of these commandments of the Mosaic covenant. And in that one, in the book of Deuteronomy, it says very clearly, you saw no form of me at all on the day that I spoke with you. In this one, that is not quoted, but the point is the same. God doesn't want anything else. Now, interestingly enough, archaeologically, in this whole area, archaeologists have dug up multiple idols from all the various religions that were of the people that lived in the area historically, but never was anything found from the Hebrew people. So apparently they went along with that. And just as an interesting aside, there were some Christians who came later who used this very phrase as a reason not to have statues in churches, for instance. That's just an aside and a very small thing, but people extract little phrases and then use them out of context or alone without being connected to anything else to make a decision for themselves. And again, no idols would differentiate the Hebrew people from everybody else because everybody else had idols. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. Jealous. This is the word that for them means God demands exclusive allegiance to him. You can't divide, well, I'll sometimes worship you and other times hang with the Hittites and their gods and things like that. And this is putting a complete stop to that. Exclusively the Hebrew people have to be connected to God. Okay, now, inflicting punishment for their father's wickedness on the children of those who hate me, down to the third and fourth generation, but bestowing mercy down to the 1,000th generation on the children of those who love me and keep my commandments. Now, I underlined punishment and mercy, two very opposite words, a huge contrast. First of all, it's well known that later generations may suffer from decisions that are made by people before them. This is not intending to induce guilt. This is intending to highlight mercy. So for instance, here it says punishment down to the third and fourth generation. But look what the mercy is bestowed on. To the 1,000th, it's completely unbalanced. You know, it's not a tit for tat. So the children of those who hate me down to the third and fourth generation will be punished. That's how exclusively I want you to be connected to me. But on the other hand, the mercy that I will bestow, it like proliferates to the 1,000th generation. So what you're supposed to get from this isn't the punishment, but the contrast, especially with the huge number given to mercy. And just as an aside, there's so much talk environmentally today even. Decisions we make now and have been making for 100 years will impact the earth for the generations that will come after us. That's exactly what this is saying. The people who come after have to deal with decisions of the people who went before them. But this isn't about guilt. This is dealing with suffering because of wrong decisions that came beforehand. Okay, and this is the second, and I'm doing all the Roman Catholic counting now. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. In vain mean for any evil use. There was a hugely big, it goes along with power in name, which we've talked about over and over again. There was this huge obsession with curses and magical formulas, depending on whose name you invoked. And so this specifies, this word refers to no evil use, and in other words, not used to give a curse or use a magical formula that doesn't admit that I have the supreme power. So that's what name in vain means. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. 6 days you may labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. No work may be done then, either by you or your son or daughter, or your male or female slave, or your beast, or by the alien who lives with you. In 6 days, the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them. But on the 7th day, he rested. And that is why the Lord has blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Made it holy. Okay, now to set this, which we call the third commandment, apart from anything else, is emphasized because of the sheer number of verses that it takes. And it's the longest of all the precepts in the Decalogue here, but this is important. I want you to understand that the rest, the Sabbath rest, when the creation is referenced here, you cannot think like this. Okay, God created all the world in 6 days and then it's over and then he's exhausted and he rests. That's anthropomorphizing it. Nevertheless, it's easy to go there in your head. It's not that. It's the resting on the 7th day that completes the creation. That's really important, so I want you to hear it again. It's the resting on the 7th day that completes the creation. And look down here, makes it holy. And so doing this is a way for us to imitate God. We have to see it as more than just a break in our lives. We have to see it as imitative of the Creator, who blessed creation in his resting and invites us to do the same. I also want to bring your attention to this humanitarian motive, which the Decalogue in the book of Deuteronomy emphasizes even more. So not only can you not work, but your children can't work, your slaves can't work, your animals can't work, resident aliens can't work. You know, it's got to be completely pervasive in the not working. Okay, the fourth one, honor your father and mother that you may have a long life in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. We tend to connect that mostly, or we used to, we mostly tended to connect that to children's sins of disobeying parents. When in fact, if you think about it, probably it's true to say that as an adult, if you were blessed enough to still have your parents, there was, especially maybe in your teenage years, a lot of dishonoring going on. But this particular precept came to be because they were wandering in the desert, and if people were not strong enough to continue the journey, like a very compromised elderly person, they could leave them to die and just keep on going. And this was to address that as well. You shall not kill. Okay. You need to know that killing in battle and capital punishment were both approved in the Mosaic law. So this is really talking about killing one person, like one Israelite killing another Israelite because of hatred or something. That's really what this is referring to. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. This includes a loss of freedom. So in other words, by this commandment, you are not allowed to enslave another. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. This right here, false witness, this is a legal term, but it isn't only regarding, in our case, lying on the witness stand. You know, it's not a formal juridical thing because it includes what we can do to damage one another's reputation in our speech. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. Understood in that is everything in the house. And then you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male nor female slave, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything else that belongs to him. Okay, so this is the Decalogue as it stands in Exodus chapter 20. Now, I think as time goes on, people are, and not just in America, because I think also the church can be notorious for this. I think we like to make excuses or give exceptions to what we see as a restriction or something that limits us or constrains us. We're not a people that loves limits. And so we can delude ourselves into thinking, well, look what we have done in the past. Even in the church, which is, this part has been misunderstood, but the whole just war theory, which we still claim to justify offensive action against someone else, when in its beginning, it was composed to put a stop on this profligate killing of each other. It was meant to do containing, and we have used it as an excuse that hasn't really gone deeply enough into it. So, and think about that. That can go lots of different ways. So for instance, we can say, well, you don't kill except in times of self-defense, or because of national security. We can do it that way. Or what ends up happening then is we are allowing ourselves to kill because of convenience, because of racism, because of religious intolerance, because of money, to ensure our way of life as better than other ways of life. So this justification, this making of excuses and exceptions is not the property of just one country or one faith. And we need to be clear about that. But I think we also need to be clear that God isn't advising us. God is commanding us. So what do we do with that? You know, if God is commanding us, then what do we do with that? If we can understand that the giving of this Mosaic covenant that we call the Ten Commandments was the way we would stay connected to God, it harkens back to the beginning of the book of Genesis, when it is stated that we are made in the image of God, and that is a truth in us. So when we reject this belonging that a covenant is, Brit or bris, when we reject that, when we choose to excuse ourselves or make exceptions for ourselves, we're actually destroying what we are, who we are as belonging to God. So instead of looking at these in the way, well, how much can I do before it's a sin? Instead, I think we have to look at it in the context of the belonging that God intends because we image God. And that puts a whole different slant on it, I think.